Welcome back to my YouTube channel. When you begin a sentence with a phrase one of, you have to make use of a plural subject followed by a singular verb along with that. For example, one of my friends is a doctor. What does the sentence mean? I have many friends and one among them is a doctor. So one of my friends is a doctor. One of my relatives lives in Mumbai. That means I have many relatives. One among them lives in Mumbai. In these sentences, I'm not talking about everybody, every friend, or every relative. My focus is on just one of my friends or one of my relatives. That's the reason why we make use of a singular verb. Looking at the subject, friends and relatives, which are plural, we shouldn't make use of plural verbs along with them because in both the sentences, the real subject is singular, that is one. One of my friends. I'm talking about just one. In the second sentence, I'm talking about one of my relatives. I have many relatives and I'm talking just about one of them. It is wrong to say one of my relative because you are talking about one among many relatives. So the expression should be one of my relatives. That means you have got so many relatives, but in this context, you are talking about just one of them. So one of my relatives is wrong. One of my friend is wrong. One of my cousin is wrong. You should say one of my cousins, one of my friends, one of my brothers, one of my sisters, one of my teachers, one of the leaders, one of the actors, one of the singers, and so on. And these plural subjects should be followed by singular verbs. One of my friends has come. It does not have come. One of my friends has come. I have many friends. I'm talking about one who has come now. So one of my friends has come. One of my relatives has come. So remember to use a plural subject followed by a singular verb when your sentence begins with the expression one of. There are many other expressions of this kind. For example, neither of them has come. We talk about two of them, but still the verb is singular because the phrase neither of is a singular subject. So neither of them has come. Either of them has come. Every one of them has come. None of them has come. Each one of them has come. Every one of them has come. So there are many expressions which make a subject singular. But when you make use of a relative pronoun in such a sentence, then you have to make use of a plural verb along with a plural subject. Look at the sentence. One of my relatives who live in Bantwal is a doctor. I'm talking about more than one relative. Where do they live? They live in Bantwal. And among those who live in Bantwal, only one is a doctor. So here we are making use of both singular verb and a plural verb. This happens because when there is a relative pronoun like who or which or that in a sentence, the verb that comes after the relative pronoun should agree with the subject that comes just before it. One of the friends who know the answer, one of my friends who know the answer, one of the engineers who have come here. So many engineers have come here. I'm talking about one out of them. There are many engineers here in my house. One of the engineers who have come here. One of the writers who write in English. There are many writers who write in English. I'm talking about one among them. One of the lessons which are difficult to be understood. One of the lessons lessons is plural, which is a relative pronoun. So the verb that comes after that should go with its antecedent. The word that comes before the relative pronoun is called antecedent. So the rule is, when there is a relative pronoun, the verb that comes after that should agree with its antecedent or the word that comes before that. So we say one of the lessons which are difficult to be understood. One of my friends who live in Mumbai, one of my brothers who work in Delhi, one of my sisters who live in the US, one of my friends who speak in French, one of the leaders who help the poor people. But then the next verb should be singular. Say, look at the sentence again. One of my relatives who live in Mumbai is a scientist. One of my relatives lives in Mumbai and he is a scientist. So how do I express it? One of my relatives who live in Mumbai is a scientist. So what is understood from this? When you begin a sentence with the expressions like one of, every one of, each one of, none of, neither of, either of, you have to make use of a plural subject followed by a singular verb. But if there is a relative pronoun in a sentence which begins with one of, then you need to make the verb that comes after the relative pronoun agree with its antecedent or the word that comes before that. So we say one of my relatives who live in Mumbai is a doctor. In this sentence, we are using two subjects and two verbs. What are they? One is a subject that goes with is. The second subject is relatives. The second verb is live. So one of my relatives who live in Delhi is a scientist. So one goes with is. One is a scientist. Relatives live in Delhi. Relatives plural subject, live is plural verb. So one of my relatives who live in Delhi is a scientist. So to sum up, don't ever say one of my relative. That is wrong. It is wrong to say one of my relatives are. The correct sentence is one of my relatives is. One of my friends is. One of my teachers has. One of my teachers knows English. But if there is a relative pronoun in such a sentence, you will be using two subjects and two verbs. The verb that comes after the relative pronoun should agree with the word that comes just before that. So we say one of my relatives who live in Delhi is a scientist. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'll be back with another topic.